What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto uses a Zanbato Sasuke bashing? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. As Zabuza is cutting through the small army of mercenaries hired by Gato, Naruto is thinking over the mission. The fight with the demon brothers, Gozu and Maizu. After that, the first battle with Zabuza. Zabuza is Naruto's strongest opponent to date, while other than Kakashi during the bell test. The blonde knew that his sensei was crazy strong. If their first encounter was anything to go by, Naruto also knew that Zabuza was just as strong. After Zabuza it was the hunter Nin, and then Tazuna's family. Which is where Naruto met Inari, and laid it into the boy. Next was his meeting with Haku. The boy who looked prettier than Sakura. This was the meeting that started this introspective Naruto. Haku told him that protecting who you thought was precious is how you grow and get stronger. That struck a chord with the blonde. He didn't know it yet, but that would be one of his most defining features. Haku, who was a person he now thought of as precious, dead. How could he be Hokage if he is so weak? How could he have protected Haku? Anger took over the young genin, as he shouted at the demon of the mist, berating him on how much Haku cared for him. Naruto only stopped when Zabuza says, "Don't you ever think that I didn't care, Gaki? Now give me a kunai." So Naruto does. Zabuza bit away at his mask, and caught the kunai in his mouth. That was what started the bloodbath on the bridge. Zabuza only stopped when he saw Gato dead, with a slice through the businessman's neck. Zabuza, now lying next to Haku, slowing dying of blood loss, as he sees the snow fall. He asks, "Haku, are you crying? For me? You were always too kind for me. I hope you are happy wherever you are, because I don't think we are going to the same place. But I can hope, can't I?" Momochi then looks towards Naruto, and says, "Naruto, you are the one who killed me. I believe that much in my heart. You have killed the demon of the mist. Take Kabikirabocho, my sword, and honor Haku and me. Anyway, here are the coordinates to our base here in Nami. I give you ownership of everything in there. Goodbye." This is when both the demon and the ice prince died. Naruto slowly walked towards the huge blade, with his head turned down to the ground. The Uzumaki looks at Kabikirabocho. Kabikirabocho is a large broad sword, as tall as a full-grown man, shaped like a butcher knife. The blade itself has two cutouts, a circle close to the top and a semicircular one nearer to the handle, the former of which is aptly fitting the sword's purpose of decapitation. The latter notch allows a strap to be wrapped around the weapon, making it easier for the user to carry. Its extremely long handle is also detachable to further aid transportation and then reattached when required for combat. The blonde knew what to do. No more thinking had to be done. He will honor Zabuza and Haku. He will become the Konohagakure no Kijin, demon of the hidden leaves. Naruto picks up the heavy blade, and lays it against his shoulder. Imitating Zabuza, he spreads his feet apart, getting close to the ground. The mercenaries that are still alive are intimidated, as they see Naruto's now crimson-slitted eyes shine through his sunshine blonde hair. It also didn't help the mercenaries, for that was the exact moment the villagers came, armed to the teeth. The mercenaries booked it first chance they got, and would hopefully never come back. When Naruto stood straight, he falls face first onto the bridge. Sakura gasps, as Kakashi bends down, and picks up both the boy, and his humongous sword. The Haruno looks at Naruto for the first time, with some worry in her eyes. Kakashi sees this, and asks, "Sakura, remember when I passed out from using my Sharingan?" Sakura answers, "Of course I do, Kakashi-sensei, but why are you bringing that up?" Kakashi replies, "Naruto for the first time ever, has just experienced chakra exhaustion." Sakura asks, "Why is that, Kakashi-sensei?" Kakashi answers, "His chakra reserves rivals Hokage-sama's reserve. He'd be a perfect ninjutsu specialist." Sakura asks, "What would I be? You know, as a specialist?" Kakashi answers, "With your low chakra reserves and stamina. Sakura, you also have perfect chakra control. You be perfect as a genjutsu specialist, or a Iroh nin, medical nin. Anyway, let's get back to Tazuna's place." So they go there, but not before burying Zabuza and Haku up on a nearby cliff. A day later, Naruto wakes back up in the room in Tazuna's house. By the nightstand next to the bed, is Kabikirabocho, his new sword. On the nightstand is a belt to which Zabuza attached his, now Naruto's sword to. Naruto then got shirtless and put the belt on. He then attached Kabikirabocho to the belt. He still wore his orange pants with a shuriken holster on his right knee, blue sandals, and a blue Konoha Hite 8, which was turned sideways. The blonde went downstairs, only to see everyone staring at him. He asks, "Why are you staring at me like that?" Sakura answers, "Well, you just looked so much like Zabuza," and Naruto rubs the back of his head and replies, "He told me to honor him, right? As much as I like orange, I don't think too much of the color would help my reputation as the Konohagakure no Kijin, demon of the hidden leaves. Plus, I figured it was a perfect time to change how I looked." Kakashi then says, "Well, first you have to be able to use Kabikirabocho before you go calling yourself that. So, how about I take you to the coordinates that Zabuza told you about? I mean, he did say you owned everything there, right?" Naruto replies, "Of course, Kakashi-sensei." Kakashi jokingly says, Now Naruto, you could burst eardrums with Sakura in no time." Naruto just grumbles and walks out of the house. Kakashi then orders, "Sasuke, Sakura stay here, and protect Tazuna and his family." The Hitaki then walks out of the house, intent on catching up with Naruto. Which he does quite easily, seeing as Naruto is weighed down by the sword. Kakashi, who is now walking right next to Naruto. He asks, "Naruto, do you know the secret of the Kage Bunshin?" Naruto turns his head to his sensei, and responds, "No sensei, I don't." "What is it?" Kakashi is a little bit surprised. He says, "You should. I mean, you have been spamming the Kage Bunshin since you graduated from the academy. Anyway, once a Kage Bunshin has dispersed, the clone's experiences and remaining chakra are transferred back to the user. This makes the Kage Bunshin perfect for spying." Naruto then gets a stroke of genius, and asks, "Then could it be used for training also?" Kakashi then has an invisible light bulb flash above his head. He says, "Yes, but you couldn't use this type of training for anything physical. Using it to get katas down, ninjutsu, and genjutsu are a perfect way to do this type of training. As one could be doing the tree walking exercise. Another could be getting used to lifting and swing your sword. While you could be learning ninjutsu. Plus, only you could use this training method, as most don't even have enough chakra for one Kage Bunshin, let alone hundreds." They continue walking for a while and they see a cave. Kakashi then says, "You can continue. But first, I'll teach you how to use a storage scroll. I'm pretty sure it was mentioned in the academy, right?" Naruto just shrugs. He replies, "Kakashi-sensei, as you and everyone knows, my attendance rate at the academy was very low." Kakashi pulls out a storage scroll and then says, "This is a storage scroll. All you have to do is open the scroll, and then place the items you want in the scroll, on the Fuinjutsu, sealing techniques. Then after that is done you channel your chakra into the Fuin, seal, and said items will be safely held inside the scroll. To get the items back, you once again channel chakra into the Fuin, and the items will reappear." "Did you get all of that, Naruto?" Naruto answers, "Of course I did, Kakashi-sensei." He then grabs the storage scroll and enters the cave. Once Naruto entered the cave, and got used to the lighting inside of it, Naruto that it was just a simple cave. It was littered with scrolls all over the ground, and had 2 futons on opposite sides. Naruto unfurled the scroll, and got to work placing the tons of scrolls onto the storage scroll. He then channeled his chakra through the storage scroll, and in a huge puff of smoke all of the scrolls disappeared. The Uzumaki only kept 3 scrolls. One for the Kirigakure no Jutsu, hiding in mist technique. Sirento Kiringu, silent killing. Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu, water clone technique. And the Suiryuden no Jutsu, water release. Water dragon bullet technique. Naruto then exited the cage and returned to Tazuna's. Kakashi told them that they had a week left in the land of waves, and the blonde wasn't going to waste it. Not even a single bit of it. So, Naruto goes into the forest that surrounds Tazuna's home, and makes a single hand seal. He then yells, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, shadow clone technique." 100 shadow clones appear in a puff of smoke. Naruto then orders, "I want 25 of you to do the Kirigakure no Jutsu, another 25 to do the Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu, another 25 to do the Suiryuden no Jutsu, the final 25, plus me will be doing the Sirento Kiringu. Now get to it. Kakashi then hides in a tree, and watches as the three groups of Narutos go, and what they were ordered. He then watches as Naruto reads the scroll for silent killing. Naruto then puts the scroll away, and places his Hite 8 over his eyes. The Uzumaki then orders, I want all of you to attack me. While you are doing that, I will be listening to you all, and trying to dispel each and every one of you. Oh, before I forget, only I will be able to use Kabikirabocho and try to be as quiet as you can. I mean we all did read the scroll, right? Now, attack. Kakashi then giggles as he watches Naruto is getting pummeled by his clones. But then something happens. Naruto actually ducks under a punch, and then slashes at the clone with Kabikirabocho, dispelling it. Kakashi then makes shadow clones, and orders them to watch the other groups of Narutos. He sees that they are also making okay progress. He then goes to watch over his other students to see what they are doing. Sasuke is doing self-training with the Sharingan, obviously. While Sakura is talking with Tsunami, who is Tazuna's daughter. The Hitaki thinks, I will most definitely train them on the way home. I mean Sakura will most likely need it the most, anyway. A week has gone by. In the said week, Naruto has mastered Kirigakure no Jutsu, and the Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu. He has created one jutsu, which is called Suiden. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, water release, shadow clone technique. Which a B-rank ninjutsu. Naruto also has a good grasp on silent killing, and the Suiryuden no Jutsu. Although, Suiryuden no Jutsu is not ready for battle yet. He even started on the Suiro no Jutsu, water prison technique. As the people of Nami are gathered to watch Team 7 leave, Inari, who is crying, asks, do you have to leave, Naruto ni-chan? Naruto replies, of course I do, Inari. I'm a shinobi of Konoha, and it's my duty to protect my home. Like it is your duty to protect the people of Nami. Inari then asks, will you visit us again, Naruto ni-chan? Naruto answers, of course I will, Inari. I promise, and I never go back on my word, nor will I run away. It's my ninja way. Sasuke then says, HN. Yusura Tonkachi, I'd like to go home at some point. Naruto turns and looks at Sasuke. He replies, hey, Teme. Can't you see I don't give a shit? Sakura yells, don't antagonize Sasuke-kun, Naruto baka. Kakashi then says, Ma, come on my cute little genin, you don't have to fight. I mean just a week ago, we fought 2 rank missing nin from Kiri. So let's go back home to Konoha. After saying their goodbyes once again, team and leave the land of waves. After they are quite a ways away, Inari asks, Gigi, what should we name this bridge? Tazuna suggests, how about the great and amazing Tazuna Bridge? After Tazuna gets denied, Inari asks, how about the great Naruto Bridge? Tazuna answers, that is a perfect name for the bridge. We shall name this bridge in the honor of the Nami no Kusishu, savior of the waves. Henceforth, this bridge shall forever be named the Great Naruto Bridge. Another week later, and Team 7 are standing in front of the Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Hiruzen Sarutobi is a short man. He wears the official uniform of the Hokage. The customary hat and haori with a red, full-length kimono that is tied using a white sash. The Sandaime has white hair, and a goatee, with lines coming down from his eyes. The Sandaime says, Kakashi, report. Kakashi then says, well, it got interesting a mile from Konoha when the demon brothers appeared, trying to kill Tazuna. Naruto froze, while Sakura protected the client, and Sasuke went on the offensive. Sasuke was beating them, but slipped past him. Gaizu rushes Sakura, and Tazuna. This is when I stepped in, and ended the fight. The Sandaime asks, what happened next? Kakashi answers, I got answers from Tazuna. It appears that Gato, of Gato Company bleed Nami dry, and then took it over. Not even their daimyo had enough money for anything better than a C-rank mission. I then told Tazuna that we wouldn't continue the mission, but Naruto opened his mouth, and promised that he would protect the man with his life. Which made Sasuke say that it was his first mission, and was going to complete it no matter what. This made Sakura also agree to continue, although she was hesitant. The Sandaime asks, what happened after that? Kakashi replies, "We made it to Nami no Kuni without any problems." An hour into Nami, Naruto sensed someone, and threw a kunai into the bushes. The person did a kawarimi, and replaced themselves with a white fur snow hare. This is our first encounter with Zabuza Momochi, the Kirigakure no Kijin. I fought him, and got stuck in the Suiro no Jutsu. At this point, I told the team to run, but they didn't. Tazuna told them to help me. So Naruto bum rushed Zabuza with cage bunchins, while the original hanged into a Fuma shuriken, and was given to Sasuke, who got out his own Fuma shuriken. Sasuke threw both shuriken. Zabuza caught the first one, and jumped over the second shuriken. The shuriken then disappeared in a puff of smoke, and Naruto threw a kunai at Zabuza's hand, which made Zabuza remove his hand from the prison, and allowing me to escape. As I was about to defeat and kill Zabuza, a fake hunter nin out Zabuza in a near-death-like state, and shunshine somewhere. Sadly, I passed out from chakra exhaustion. The Sandame asks, "And, after that?" Kakashi answers, "During the week I was getting healed, I taught them the tree-walking exercise. The day I was fully healed, me, Sasuke, and Sakura protect Tazuna on his way to the bridge. When we got there, the bridge was covered in a thick mist, which was made by Zabuza, who was also fully healed. I fought Zabuza, while Sasuke fought the hunter nin, who at this point Naruto knew him by a different name." The Sandame asks, "Where was Naruto during this?" Kakashi answers, "Naruto overtrained the night before, so I let him sleep in." Naruto then asks, "Can I tell this part, Kakashi-sensei?" Kakashi looks at Naruto, and nods. Naruto says, "Haku, the hunter nin's name was Haku Yuki, of the Yuki clan, who was known for their Hyaten, ice release. Haku was born in a small, snowy village in the Land of Water, a land that had suffered from war not long before. In this war, different sides battled each other using ninja, some of whom possessed Kekkei Genkei. After the war ended, memories of the horrific battles still lingered in the minds of the people. Those with Kekkei Genkei quickly became feared and hated for their abilities, out of concern that their existence would only bring about more war. Haku's father and mother were simple farmers, and they lived a peaceful life. They loved each other, and were kind to their child. Unfortunately, this would all change. Haku's mother was a wielder of a Kekkei Genkei, Hyaten. She hid this fact from her husband, hoping that the love and peace that was shared in their small family would last forever. One day, Haku discovered the ability to manipulate water. Amazed by this, Haku proudly showed this to his mother, who was horrified by what she saw. She harshly scolded and slapped Haku for displaying his ability, though she tearfully apologized to him immediately afterwards. Unbeknownst to them, Haku's father had seen everything from the shadows. When Haku's father discovered that his wife and child possessed a Kekkei Genkei, he assembled a small mob of villagers. With tears flowing down his eyes, he killed his wife. He then attempted to kill Haku. But before he could, Haku used his ice release to create several large ice spikes to kill his father and the rest of the mob. Orphaned, Haku became a child who was wanted by no one and was forced to take to the cold streets and rummage through trash bins for scraps of food, even sometimes having to fight off the wild dogs that roamed the streets. In time, he was confronted by Zabuza Momochi, a man who had the same eyes as him. Zabuza later asked Haku to become his weapon, which meant to become a dedicated for Zabuza. Haku readily accepted this role, due to the purpose it gave him, and devoting his life to becoming the ultimate tool for Zabuza to use. The Sandame nods, and says, "You two are people hated for what they had no control over." It is sad what she experienced, no doubt about it. Naruto replies, "We bonded on some level. Me, Zabuza, and Haku. Zabuza told me that I had killed him, that I killed the demon." Hiruzen says, "I think Zabuza believes that you made him a human, that let his emotions show for young Haku. Anyway, what happened at the bridge?" Kakashi answers, "While we were fighting on the bridge, Naruto woke up, and tried to go to the bridge, but went back to Tazuna's house because he found something suspicious. Someone cut up the trees, and even a boar with a katana, former samurai. Anyway, Naruto protected Tsunami and Inari, who are Tazuna's daughter and grandson respectively. Right as Haku used his Hyaten, Naruto appeared, and nicked him with a shuriken. As they fought in the ice dome, I was still Zabuza, whose mist was too thick. From what I know from Naruto, he used its chakra to beat Haku, but that wasn't what killed the boy. He died from a Chidori to the chest to protect Zabuza. The Sandaime asks, what happened next? Kakashi answers, Naruto tore into Zabuza about how he didn't care about Haku, and how much Haku actually cared for him. Before that though, Gato appeared, kicked the dead Haku, and told an army of 200 mercenaries to kill everyone on the bridge but him. Zabuza, without the use of his arms, asked Naruto for kunai. Naruto threw the kunai at Zabuza, who caught it in his mouth. Zabuza then tore through the mercenaries and killed Gato. Momochi's back was covered with swords, as he got next to Haku and caressed the boy's cheek. He then told Naruto that Kabikirabocho is now his, along with everything he owned. The Sandaime asks, did anything else happen? Kakashi answers, Sasuke awakened his Sharingan. The Sandaime then says, that's enough. Kakashi, send me the full report by the end of the day. Everyone is dismissed but Naruto. You all have a week off, and can get your pay from Iruka at the mission room. Naruto watches as everyone, but the Hokage and him leave the room. He asks, so what do you want to talk about, Hokage Gigi? Hiruzen smiles, and answers, so now that you have his sword, what are you going to do with it? Naruto replies, I'm going to honor Zabuza and Haku. I'm going to become the Konohagakure no Kijin. Hiruzen is kinda shocked at this. He asks, do you know what that means, right Naruto? Naruto answers, it means that I'll have to kill, right? But, as shinobi we will kill, or we could very much end up dying. The mission to Nami no Kuni opened my eyes to the world of shinobi, and I'm better for it. Hiruzen smiles at the boy, he thinks of like a grandson. He asks, if you'd like I could get someone to teach you kenjutsu, sword techniques. Naruto answers, no thank you Gigi. I have Kage Bunshin mastering Zabuza's kenjutsu kata, and techniques as we speak. Hiruzen says, so you figured out the secret to the Kage Bunshin, huh? Naruto replies, yeah, Kakashi-sensei told me, and then I thought they could be used for training. Kakashi-sensei says that I'm the only one that could don't it though. Hiruzen says, I'd like to see your skill with Kabikirabocho. So I'll send a kenjutsu master to spar with you. If that's okay? Naruto answers, it's perfectly fine, Gigi. Hiruzen then says, anyway, if you want to talk about anything, like using, or train in its chakra, come to me. I'll help you. Naruto says, thank you, Gigi. I'll come to you, if, and when I need help. He then leaves the office with a wave of his hand, signaling a goodbye to the aged Hokage, and the person he thought of as a grandpa. As Naruto is walking to his clones, who are training, the Uzumaki bumps into someone. That someone is a boy named Konohamaru Sarutobi, who is the grandson of the Sandaime Hokage. Konohamaru has short spiky brown hair, blue eyes, and a small chip in his tooth. He wears Naruto's old green goggles, to show that he is a student of Naruto. Around Konohamaru's neck is a long blue scarf. The young Sarutobi wears a pair of gray shorts, and a yellow shirt with a red Konoha symbol printed on it. Konohamaru looks at the blonde, and asks, boss, is that you? Naruto looks at Konohamaru, and answers, of course it is, Konohamaru. Konohamaru gets excited. He asks, what are going to do today, boss? Naruto replies, I was going to train, and then get some ramen. But, things have changed. Seeing as I am going to teach you a new technique I just learned. Now follow me, my student. Konohamaru excitedly follows Naruto to where his clones are. Konohamaru, who is confused, and in awe of all of the clones asks, are you going to teach me the Bunshin no Jutsu? Naruto smirked, as he answers, oh, that? That is called Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. It's a B-rank kenjutsu created by the Nidaime. Sorry, but you won't be learning it, yet. Konohamaru then interrupts Naruto, and asks, then what will I be learning, then? Naruto answers, you will be learning the C-rank ninjutsu, Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu. This jutsu is from Kirigakure. It only has one hand seal, which is tiger. Using water from the surroundings, the user creates one or more copies of themselves. Unlike the standard Bunshin no Jutsu, these water clones are physically real, allowing them to interact with others and even perform the same jutsu as the user. Although a single water clone can be quite challenging to a standard genin, water clones only have about a tenth of their user's strength. When a water clone is sufficiently damaged, it will revert back into water. Also, Mizu Bunshins cannot travel too far from their user's location. Konohamaru, try it. After Naruto said this, a water clone appears right next to Naruto. Konohamaru does the hand seal. Tiger. The Sarutobi then yells, Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu, water clone technique. A clone then rises from the water of the nearby lake. It wasn't a perfect copy, but way better than Naruto's first attempt at the jutsu. Naruto then says, good job, Konohamaru, but keep on training. Once you perfect this jutsu to my liking, we will have a spar, okay? Konohamaru answers, okay, boss. I won't let you down. I promise. Naruto replies, then you better keep that promise. Now let's go to Ichiraku's. Once at Ichiraku's ramen, Naruto yells, hey, old man. Give me the usual. Also give Konohamaru whatever he wants. Tuchi Ichiraku, or old man as Naruto calls him, yells, who are you calling old man? Oh, hey Naruto, how was your mission? So what do you want? Konohamaru answers, I'll have what the boss is having. Naruto answers, it was awesome. We fought a user of the Hayaten Kekkei Genkei named Haku. He was the apprentice of the Kirigakure no Kijin, Zabuza Momochi. Zabuza was a member of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, and an A-rank missing nin. He gave me this sword. That is when Hiruzen sits down next to them, and says, Naruto, that is a great honor, you know. When a member gives you their sword it means they want to continue their legacy, or their dream. Naruto replies, from the scrolls one have read, Zabuza wanted to end the Yondaime Mizukage, Yagura Karitachi's reign of terror, and become the Mizukage. He also loved Haku like a son, although he'd never say it. He most definitely wrote it. His cynical view of the world, which only consists of the used and the users, as well as viewing shinobi to be nothing more than tools. Tuchi says, that's one awful way to look at the world. Also here is your ramen. Naruto nods, and says, I don't believe in the man's worldview, but from what I have read about the terror that Yagura has spread throughout Kiri, in Mizu no Kuni. That man is a horrible cage, and Jinchuriki. Yagura must be stopped. The Sandaime then asks, do you want to continue his dreams, Naruto? Naruto replies, even if I wasn't from Kiri, I'd like to see peace in the village once again, and once I do, Gigi. I'll have your hat, Titibeo. The Sandaime then says, when you become Chunin, I'll let you help in the Kiri civil war. Remember the name Maid Terumi, she is the leader of the Bloodline faction, which is fighting against Yagura and his army. Come on Konohamaru, let's go home, and then you can tell me about your day. Goodbye, Naruto-kun, Tuchi-san. Naruto says, bye Gigi, old man. He then runs off, but not before paying for both Konohamaru's and his ramen. Naruto then goes back to the training ground. The blonde thinks, what are the hand seals for Sasuke's fire jutsu? Wait, before that, what is it even called? He brought this up to his clones, for which one clone says, Kaden. Gokakyu no Jutsu. Fire release. Great fireball technique. Another clone says, snake right pointing arrow ram right pointing arrow monkey right pointing arrow boar right pointing arrow horse right pointing arrow tiger, I think. Naruto replies, good, now learn it. A week later, Naruto has made the Suiryuden no Jutsu, water release. Water dragon bullet technique. And the Suiro no Jutsu, water prison technique, battle ready. The Kaden Gokakyu no Jutsu is also ready to use in battle. He also started on the rest of Zabuza's jutsu and techniques. Naruto now wears a long, black Konoha Hite 8 sideways on his head, orange pinstriped arm covers extending from his hands to his biceps, and a white, sleeveless hoodie, which has a small Uzumaki swirl on the back at the base of the hood. He still wears the belt, which is over the hoodie with Kabikirabocho attached to it on his back, and has Haku's now fixed mask over the buckle, which now has Konoha's symbol on it. The blonde also now wears bandages like a mask over the bottom half of his face, which continue down his neck, and is loosely tied around said neck. His orange pants now has waist guards. Naruto changed his sandals to a black pair, that went midway up his calves. He is with Team 7 in the mission room. It is their first mission since the Land of Waves. A mission that changed everyone, but Kakashi. Even Sakura changed somewhat, as she has started to train more. Sasuke wears a navy blue, short-sleeved shirt with a high collar that has the Uchiha fan on the back, white pants, black arm guards, a blue Konoha Hite 8, and a pair of blue shinobi sandals that also go midway up his calves. Sasuke bears a strong resemblance to Izuna Uchiha, who is the younger brother of Madara Uchiha. He has black eyes and spiky black hair with a blue tint. Sasuke's hair has hung over his face as bangs since he was a child, which as he gets older he allows to grow longer and, in turn, cover more of his face. Which Naruto has repeatedly said looks like a duck's ass. Sakura wears a red kippou dress without sleeves, and with slits along the sides accompanied by a zipper and white circular designs. She also wears tight dark green bike shorts with a shuriken holster around her right thigh, blue sandals, and the standard Konoha Hite 8 that she wears as a hairband. Sakura also has fair skin, green eyes, and pink hair, that has been cut to a shoulder-length bob. Kakashi has a strong resemblance to his father, so much so that they are sometimes mistaken for each other. He has spiky silver hair often oriented to his left side, black eyes, and typically a relaxed and lazy expression. During the Third Shinobi World War, his left eye was damaged, leaving a vertical scar from the injury. The eye was shortly afterwards replaced with a Sharingan, which he covers with his Konoha Hite 8 when he isn't using it. Since early childhood and near constantly, he wears a mask that prevents most of his face from being visible. Even his ninkin have seen his face so sparingly that most of them don't remember what he looks like unmasked. On the few occasions he exposes his full face, he has a narrow jawline and a beauty mark under the left corner of his mouth. Overall, he is considered very handsome as seen from Tuchi and Ayame's reaction to seeing his face. Kakashi wears Konoha's standard infantry clothing, a flak jacket, dark blue pants, and a long sleeve shirt. He also wears fingerless gloves with metal plates on the backhand and is seen with a chain necklace underneath. The Sandame says, "Welcome back to duty, Team 7. What kind of mission would you like? You can babysit a councilwoman's children, paint the academy's fence, or catch Tora once again, it's your choice, Kakashi." Kakashi answers, "Actually, I'd like for my team to have another C-rank mission, if one is available." The Sandame asks, "Are you sure about that, Kakashi?" Kakashi says, "I'm sure, Hokage-sama. Naruto and Sasuke are both low to mid-chunin level. Although Sakura hasn't grown as much as the other two, but she is stronger than she was a week ago." The Sandame nods, and says, "Anbu, bring in Shibuki Dono. Tell him that I have found the team to escort him back to Takigakure." The Anbu appears with a young man, who has ink-black eyes and has long, dark brown hair. As a village head, Shibuki wears a light yellow kimono jacket and light gray pants with a red scarf around his neck and a turquoise haori. He also ties his hair in a low ponytail. The Sandame then says, "Welcome back to my office, Shibuki Dono. This is Team 7, which consists of Junin leader Kakashi Hitaki, and the Genin Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, and Sakura Haruno. They will be escorting you back to Takigakure." Shibuki says, "Hello, as you know I'm Shibuki, the village head of Takigakure no Sato. Our villages has been in an alliance since the times of the Shodai Hokage, Hashirama Senju. I thank you for escorting me back to my home." Kakashi then says, "Shibuki-sama, if it is okay with you, we'll head out of Konoha first thing in the morning." Shibuki replies, "That is fine, Hitaki-san. Now if you will excuse me, I need to get back to my hotel room and get my things packed." He then leaves the mission room. The next morning Team 7, along with Shibuki, are standing at the gate. Kakashi asks, "Are we all ready, because we won't return until the mission is complete?" Naruto answers, "Anyo. I think I left Kabikirabocho at home, sensei?" Sasuke replies, "Naruto, you must be stupid, if you can't feel that sword on your back." Naruto in fake shock says, "It's on my back? When did it get there?" He then continues and says, "Of course it's on my back, Sasuke. I was joking." Kakashi just smiles and says, "Let's go to Taki, Team 7. The team then starts its journey to Takigakure no Sato, which is in Taki no Kuni, or the land of waterfalls. On the way to Taki, Team 7 didn't have to protect Shinuki from much. Unless you count all birds, chipmunks, squirrels, and deer that spooked the village head. Nothing happened yet, and Kakashi was glad. A normal C-rank mission. This should have been their first C-rank mission. Oh, how wrong could Kakashi be? Very wrong apparently. Seeing as when they got to Taki, the village was on fire, and was in the middle of getting invaded. Taki would have looked amazing, seeing as the village was built into the base of a humongous tree that you can only see in a fairy tale. Kakashi just thinks, why did I have to jinx myself like that? Shibuki then says, you can go, I need to help my village. Naruto then asks, can we help Kakashi? I mean, Taki is one of our oldest allies. We would want to tarnish our relationship with Taki. Now would we, Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi answers, go Naruto. Help Taki. Me and Sasuke will help Shibuki, while Sakura will help the civilians. Naruto chuckled evilly as he puts his mask on and pulls his hood over his head. A mist settles over the boy. Once the mist dissipates, Naruto is gone. He disappeared in a mist shunshin. Shibuki asks, are you sure about this? Kakashi answers, about what? Helping you and Taki? Yeah, I am. Now does everyone know their roles? Sasuke replies, HN. Sakura says, yes I do, Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi then says, good now to them. Sasuke and Kakashi then run after Shibuki, while Sakura runs off to find civilians to help. While that is happening, Naruto, who just covered the part of Taki he was in a thick mist. Naruto then demonically asks, there are 8 points in the human body, in which I can kill you. They are the larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular, subclavian artery, kidneys, and heart. It's your choice? One over arrogant Aim Nin replies, yeah right. As if you can see in this. Ga. The Aim Nin then falls dead, from a slash from Kabikirabocho. Naruto then makes shadow clones who kill every Aim Nin in the mist. Naruto then appears behind the last Aim Nin in the mist before decapitating them. When the mist clears, Naruto hears clapping. The Uzumaki turns to the sound, and sees a muscular, tough-looking shinobi. He wears a black, sleeveless shirt, gray pants, ninja sandals, and brown-colored arm warmers. He has about chin-length gray hair which is spiked at the top. He also has a teal line marking that goes over his nose, somewhat resemblant of Iruka's scar. Naruto, who has Kabikirabocho at the ready, over his shoulder asks, who are you, and who hit you with the fugly stick? The man answers, my name is Murasama, and I look just fine the way I am. Anyway, now that you know who I am, who are? Naruto replies, me? Well, I am Naruto Uzumaki, the Konohagakure no Kijin, the true successor of Zabuza Momochi, former member of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. Chakra then explodes from Naruto as it takes the form of an orange-colored fox demon that has 9 tails swishing back and forth. He also adds some of his, and the Kyuubi's killing intent into the area, scaring the crap out of him. Naruto then covers the area with a thick mist once again. He then weaves a huge string of hand seals. Ox right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, hare right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, dog right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, yang water right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, dragon right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, hare right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, dragon right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, yang water right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, bird. The blonde yells, Sweden. Suiryuden no Jutsu, water release, water dragon bullet technique. Naruto manipulates water into the shape of a dragon, which he then directed at a target. The water dragon then crashes upon the target, which makes him fly across the mist, and right next to a shadow clone. The clone then goes through a string of hand seals. Snake right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, hare right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, hare right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, clap hands. He yells, Suiro no Jutsu, water prison technique. With Murasama now stuck in a sphere of water, the mist disappears. Naruto appears in front of Murasama, and asks, is it getting hard to breathe? Murasama then notices his labored breathing in shock. Naruto asks, "What about your restricted movement?" To Murasama's shock once again, he found that he could barely move. Naruto says, "You will die soon, but I'd find a way to get out of this, if I were you." The shadow clone then dispels into a puff of smoke, while Murasama splashes to the ground, revealing that he was a water clone all along. Murasama then appears in front of Naruto. He then cups his hands, gathering up water. The water turns into 10 shuriken, which shoot out at Naruto. Murasama yells, "Suiden Mizu no Buki, water release, water weapons." When Naruto dodges the shuriken, which then turns into 2 water clones, who do the same hand seals. Rat right pointing arrow dog right pointing arrow ox. The clones then yells, Sueben, water release, water whip. 2 whips made out of water then wrap around Naruto, trapping the Uzumaki. Naruto then says, "This is sad. You are a sad excuse for a shinobi, Titibeo." Murasama then gets enraged by Naruto's word, rushing the blonde, and tackling the Uzumaki to the ground. Only for Naruto to dispel into a puff of smoke, signaling that Naruto was a shadow clone all along. Meanwhile, Sasuke is fighting a guy named Kirasame. Kirasame wears a black hat like forehead protector with the Omegacure symbol on the front of it, tied in the back of his head. He has tiny black eye irises, messy, chin-length brown hair coming out from under his hite, part of it covering his left eye. And no eyebrows. He wears a black skin-tight suit underneath all of his clothing, which also covers his mouth and nose. He wears a gray scarf around his neck, a white t-shirt over his black suit, a blue-colored strapped suit that acts as his pants and a shirt over his gray one. He wears his weapon holster on his right thigh and black shinobi sandals. As Kirasame is stomping the daylight out of Sasuke, his foot goes through the Uchiha, who then turns into water. Which signifies the Sasuke copied the jutsu from Kirasame. Sasuke is now behind Kirasame, and does a string of hand seals. Snake right pointing arrow ram right pointing arrow monkey right pointing arrow boar right pointing arrow horse right pointing arrow tiger. He yells, "Kaden! Gokaku no jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique." A medium-sized fireball then shoot from the Uchiha's mouth, right at Kirasame, who splashes into water. Sasuke then ducks under a roundhouse kick aimed at his head from Kirasame. When Kirasame lands, Sasuke spins around with a kunai in hand, and slashes at Kirasame's chest, which draws some blood. Finally, Sasuke thought. The Uchiha then blocks a punch, and counters it with a mean kick to the face. Although, Sasuke's feet go through Kirasame's head. Sasuke then jumps over a low sweep kick, and flings a kunai at Kirasame, who blocks it with his own kunai. Kirasame then does a wild slash at the Uchiha, who blocks it with another kunai. Sasuke then jumps over Kirasame, and weaves a string of hand seals. Snake right pointing arrow dragon right pointing arrow rabbit right pointing arrow tiger. At the peak of the jump, he is directly over Kirasame. He then yells, "Kaden! Ryuka no jutsu, fire release, dragon fire technique." The Uchiha spits flames from their mouth that, like a dragon's, quickly travel forward in a straight direction, which burns everything in and around Kirasame. And while that fight is going on, Sakura, who was just helping all the civilians get away from the fighting, had to dodge a volley of senbon. A woman then appears. She says, "I am Hisame, and I'm going to kill you, and everyone you are protecting." Hisame is a young, quite tall, and slim kunoichi with fair skin, short light brown unkempt spiky hair, azure blue earrings, red lipstick, pupil-less black eye irises, short thin light brown eyebrows, and wears a white hairband over her head, holding the hair out of the way from her eyes. She wore a pink tube top that has a dark red linen along with an open, light blue shirt, navy blue pants and ninja sandals. She wore her shuriken holster on her right leg. Hisame then cups his hands, gathering up water. The water turns into 10 shuriken, which shoot out at Sakura. She yells, "Suiden Mizu no Buki, water release, water weapons." Sakura dodges the shuriken, and flings a kunai towards Hisame, which she blocks with a senbon. The Haruno then gets captured. A water clone that was hiding behind Sakura made a string of hand seals. Rat right pointing arrow dog right pointing arrow ox. The clone then yells, "Sueben, water release, water whip." A thick mist then covers the area, as Naruto appears behind Hisame. He then decapitates the woman, killing her. Sakura spins around, and sees Naruto. She asks, "So did you have to fight someone too?" Naruto, with a shrug answers, "Did I have to? No, but I did fight, and I did kill." Sakura looks at Naruto, and is a little creeped out. She then asks, "What about Sasuke-kun, and Kakashi-sensei? Is Shibuki okay?" Naruto replies, "Sasuke is fine, Kakashi-sensei is with Shibuki, who is a Chunin-level shinobi. He should be fine. Anyway, I hear all three of them." Sakura looks confused, and asks, "Wait, did you just say you can hear them?" Naruto answers, "Yes. I had to train my hearing, because with the Kirigakure no Jutsu, both me and my opponent could not see." Sakura then says, "Let's go then." So Naruto and Sakura rush towards Sasuke. When they get to Sasuke, he says, Let's go find Kakashi." Naruto replies, "I know where he is. Seeing as I can hear him." Sasuke just gives him a questioning stare, but doesn't say a thing. He then follows Naruto. They see Kakashi panting heavily, while protecting Shibuki, who is knocked out. The man is fighting a man with a snake-like appearance. He has very pale skin, golden eyes with slitted pupils, purple markings around his eyes and fang-like teeth. He also has pronounced cheekbones and straight waist-length black hair with some locks covering and framing his face. The man wears plain gray garbs with a black polo and pants underneath, a thick purple rope belt tied in a large knot behind his back, blue tomo-shaped earrings, and shinobi sandals with bandages around his calves. Kakashi asks, "What do you want? Orochimaru?" Meanwhile, Naruto asks, "Sakura, who's Orochimaru?" Sakura answers, "Orochimaru is one-third of the legendary Sannin. His teammates were Tsunade Senju and Jiraiya. They were taught by the Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. He's an S-rank missing nin. That is all I know. Sorry Naruto, Sasuke-kun." They then hear Kakashi, who grunts out in pain. Naruto asks, "Sasuke, are you thinking what I am thinking?" Sasuke, with a smirk on his face, replies, "Of course I am, Dobi." Sakura says, "You're going to fight Orochimaru, aren't you? Come on Naruto. Even I know you are not this stupid. Do not do this. You could die." Naruto just gives her a fox-like grin, and covers Orochimaru and Kakashi with mist. Once Naruto steps foot in the mist, he hears Orochimaru, who asks, "I wonder who this could be." Kakashi yells, "Don't. You're not strong enough." Then Orochimaru gets bisected by Naruto, who then does a string of hand seals. Ox right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, hare right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, dog right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, yang water right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, dragon right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, hare right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, dragon right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, yang water right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, bird. The blonde yells, "Sweden. Suiryuden no Jutsu, water release. Water dragon bullet technique." Naruto manipulates water into the shape of a dragon, which he then directed at Orochimaru. The water dragon then crashes upon Orochimaru, who dissolves into a puddle of mud. Snakes then wrap around Naruto, as Orochimaru says, "Sene Jashu, hidden shadow snake hands. Ah, you must be the Konohagakure no Kijin, Naruto Uzumaki, the successor of Zabuza Momochi. You've grown strong, but you aren't strong enough." Naruto then splashes into a water puddle. He then weaves a string of hand seals, as the mist dissipates. Snake right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, tiger. He yells, "Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu, fire release. Great fireball technique." Orochimaru then turns around as he is engulfed in a ball of fire. Sasuke appears next to Naruto with his Sharingan activated. He asks, "How did you learn that jutsu?" Naruto answers, "I've seen you do it so many times, that I just copied you." Orochimaru smiles, and he says, "Kukakuku. I've been waiting for you, Sasuke-kun." Sasuke then makes a string of hand seals. Snake right pointing arrow, dragon right pointing arrow, rabbit right pointing arrow, tiger. He then yells, "Kaden. Ryuka no Jutsu, fire release, dragon fire technique." The Uchiha spits flames from their mouth that, like a dragon's, quickly travel forward in a straight direction, which burns Orochimaru. Orochimaru then calmly walks out of the inferno. He tilts his head back, opens his mouth real wide, as hands appears from the mouth. Orochimaru then climbs out of the mouth. The former Sannin then rushes Sasuke with a punch, which Sasuke has barely any time to dodge. The Uchiha then counters with a kick to the face. Orochimaru casually blocks it with his forearms and punches Sasuke hard in the stomach. This makes Sasuke fly away from the Sannin, who then gets caught by Naruto. Naruto then swings the blade around and flings it as hard as he can at Orochimaru. And once again, Orochimaru gets bisected, only for snakes to emerge from both halves of his body and pull him back together, seemingly undoing the damage he sustained. Naruto then shunshions to the blade, which has lodged itself into a building, and appears, standing on the handle. Sasuke and Naruto then weaves a string of hand seals at the same time. Snake right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, tiger. They yell, "Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique." Orochimaru is then engulfed in a huge ball of fire from behind and in front. From inside the fireball, he says, "Kukakuku. You two have become quite strong indeed, but only one of you can have my gift. Sasuke, I'm sure you want to kill your brother, right? Well, I'm giving you that power." He then extends his neck and bites down on Sasuke's neck. Over the bite, a seal that consists of 3 tomo, similar to the Sharingan, appears. This knocks Sasuke unconscious. Orochimaru then says, "Kukakuku. This is goodbye for now, Sasuke-kun. Kakashi-kun, he will come to me for power, and no amount of Fuinjutsu can stop this." He disappears from view by sinking into the ground. Kakashi then covers his Sharingan and says, "Sasuke, Naruto. That was reckless. If I catch you doing something like that again, you both will be reprimanded. Do you understand me?" Naruto says, "Hi, Kakashi-sensei." Sasuke replies, I understand, Kakashi." Kakashi, who now has an eye smile on his face, asks, "Good. Now where is Sakura-chan?" Sakura answers, "Right behind you, Kakashi-sensei. Sorry about them, I tried to stop them. I really did." Her apology fell on deaf ears, as Kakashi has passed out, because of chakra exhaustion. Sakura then asks, "Naruto, could you please pick up Kakashi-sensei and Shibuki-sama, and then bring them to the hospital for me?" She then watches as Naruto picks up Kakashi and Shibuki, while she picks up Sasuke. They then follow Sakura back to the hospital, when she bumps into a girl with mint green hair. She is a petite, androgynous, tan-skinned kunoichi who wore an orange clip in her short, layered mint green hair that matched her eye color, which was also orange. Her ninja outfit consisted of a short sleeveless white midriff shirt with fishnet armor underneath, long white armlets, and fishnet shorts with a short white apron skirt over it. Her Taki Hite 8 is worn on her right arm. She also carries a cylindrical object in red wrapping on her back. Naruto then hears a voice inside of his head. The voice then says, "She is the Jinchuriki of Chome, the 7-tailed rhinoceros beetle." Naruto mentally asks, "Kyuubi? How?" The voice, now known as the Kyuubi, who answers, "Mortal, when you used my chakra for the first time, it allowed me to make a link that allows me to mentally talk to you." Naruto just thinks, "Furball." Ignoring the roar of the Kyuubi, he watches the girl. She gets back up to see Naruto, who obviously has Shibuki and Kakashi over both of his shoulders. The girl then gets into a taijutsu stance, and asks, "Who are you, and why do you have Shibuki-sama?" Naruto answers, "Hello, 7. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, 9. Me along with my team escorted Shibuki-sama from Konoha. When we got here the village was on fire. So we decided to help. I do not know what exactly happened to your leader, but I do know that he fought an S-rank missing nin from Konoha, who is named Orochimaru. Anyway, who are you? The teen replies, oh. My name is Fu, do you want to be my friend? Naruto says, sure I do. Fu gets a huge smile on her face, and drags Naruto and Sakura to her house. Well, more like she flew them to her house. A couple days later, a tall and well-built man in adulthood with fair skin. He has waist-length, spiky white hair that he usually ties back into a ponytail, with two shoulder-length bangs framing his face appears in tacky. There were red lines under his eyes which extended further down his face as he got older, going all the way to the bottom by the time he was an adult. By the time he was middle-aged, he developed wrinkles around the corners of his mouth and a wart on the left side of his nose. His usual attire consisted of a green short shirt kimono and matching pants, under which he wore mesh armor that is visible at his wrists and ankles. He also wears handguards, a black belt, traditional Japanese wooden sandals, and a red haori with two yellow circles on each side. He often carried a large scroll on his back, and had a tattoo on his left palm, and he wore a horned hite 8 with the kanji for oil, which denoted his affiliation with Mount Myoboku. This man is named Jiraiya. He is one of Konohagakure's Sannin. He then appears in front of Fu's house. Naruto looks at everyone who is away: Fu, Sasuke, and Sakura. Although, Sasuke is still in some pain from the seal. The Uzumaki whispers, someone's here. I can hear them. Jiraiya is somewhat shocked, and then knocks on the door in front of him. Naruto then answers the door, and asks, who are you? The man, while doing some poses, answers, me? Well, I'm the infamous Toad Sennin of Konoha. The wooer of women, and revered by men. I am a member of the legendary Sannin. For my name is Jiraiya. Naruto then asks, why are you here, pervy sage? Jiraiya answers, I disrespect. I swear. Anyway, everyone on missions have been recalled back to Konoha. Anyway, what happened here? This is when Kakashi wakes up. He replies, Orochimaru happened. He wanted Taki's hero water, and Sasuke Uchiha, as he bit him. That is when a seal appeared over the bite mark. Jiraiya smirks, as he says, first Zabuza? Now Orochimaru? Quite a record, but sensei will be furious about this, Kakashi. Kakashi playfully responds, Ma, Jiraiya-sama. I can't help it that one of us have extremely bad luck. Jiraiya smiles. He says, in any way, sensei has recalled everyone on a mission. We are in trouble of invasion by Otto, Suna, and Kumo. Shibuki then awakes. He says, bring Fu with you. She deserves to be happy, and I can tell she is happy with Naruto. Jiraiya looks at Shibuki in shock. He asks, are you really going to give your Jinchuriki to Konoha? Shibuki nods. He answers, yes. While going through my father's files, I found an old marriage contract between him and the Yondaime Hokage. The contract states that Fu and Naruto shall be married when they both hit the rank of genin. Apparently, Sandaime-sama knew of this, and messaged me that Naruto hit the rank of genin. Naruto asks, why would the Yondaime do that? I mean, he already put a fox in me, now he decides who I marry. He then hears Jiraiya, who whispers, shit. I guess I have to tell him about you, and Kushina earlier than expected. Oh well. Naruto says, pervy sage, I heard that. Jiraiya sighs. He says, Naruto, I'm your godfather. I trained your two-san, Minato Namikaze. Kushina Uzumaki is his wife, and your Kachan. Naruto, with a shaky voice asks, did they, love me? Jiraiya answers, I never saw them happier than when they found out that Kushina was pregnant with you. Naruto asks, why weren't you there for me when I was younger? Jiraiya shamefully answers, I am Konoha's foremost spy master, and I take pride in that title. I run a spy network to protect Konoha from her enemies. Running it takes up most of my time, but I was the one who paid for your apartment every month. I got you Gama-chan for your birthday. I got you that orange tracksuit. Naruto asks, Kakashi-sensei, did you know? Kakashi nodded, and answers, Minato-sensei was my Junin-sensei. He had me guard Kushina Ka-chan when she was pregnant with you. Naruto, you acted just like her. She was loud, headstrong, impulsive, eccentric, and stubborn girl. Kushina Ka-chan was also talkative and tomboyish. When you were younger I was the Anbu that protected you. Naruto just nods at everything he just heard. He says, let's go back home to Konoha. As he is walking out of Fu's home, he asks, Fu-chan, you coming? Jiraiya then turns to Shibuki and says, this better not get out to the world. Shibuki replies, on my honor as village head of Taki, this secret will die with me. The six then leave Taki. Naruto is standing in front of Jiraiya, who says, I will be training you for a month. In which the Chunin finals happens. I will continue to train you after the finals end. The blonde Uzumaki asks, so what are you going to train me in, pervy sage? Jiraiya says, don't call me that, Gaki. Anyway, I'm going to be teaching you the Kachiyose no Jutsu, summoning technique. It requires the hand seals. Boar right pointing arrow, dog right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, ram. Oh, and some blood. Jiraiya then bites his thumb open, and smears the blood over his palm. The Sannin then weaves a string of hand seals. Boar right pointing arrow, dog right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, ram. He yells, Kachiyose no Jutsu, summoning technique. In a puff of smoke a toad, with a huge scroll on his back appears. Jiraiya says, bite your thumb open, and sign your name, and then fingerprint in blood. So Naruto does exactly that. He bites his thumb open, signs his name, and then puts his fingerprints underneath his signature. Jiraiya then says, now practice summoning them. Naruto then bites his thumb open, and smears the blood over his palm. The blonde then weaves a string of hand seals. Boar right pointing arrow, dog right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, ram. He yells, Kachiyose no Jutsu, summoning technique. In a puff of smoke a toad appears. The toad is a very large toad, enough for Jiraiya to ride on his back. His orange skin is covered in blue markings. He has bandages wrapped around his body and left foreleg, and wears a necklace with 7 large beads on it, with the kanji for loyalty, zhang, on the central, largest one. It is also shown that he has 3 swirl-like markings in the middle of his left palm, which are similar to the ones sometimes portrayed in Jiraiya's. Jiraiya says, that is a good first try. Keep on practicing until you can summon the toad boss, Gamabunta. You can go Gamma. The toad then disappears in a puff of smoke. A week later, and Naruto still hasn't summoned Gamabunta. So Jiraiya grabs Naruto by the collar, and throws him off of a cliff. Screaming his head off, Naruto channels all the chakra he can, and appears in a sewer. Naruto starts walking one way, and sees a huge gate. Behind that gate is a humongous kitsune with 9 long swiping tails. It has red-orange fur with black fur around its eyes that stretches to its ears, red irises with black slits for pupils, and the upper body structure of a human, complete with opposable thumbs on its clawed hands. Naruto says, so, you must be the Kyuubi. Nice to meet you, finally. The Kyuubi growled, and asks, why are you here, mortal? Naruto answers, I'd like to use your chakra. You could think of it as paying me rent, and right now I'd like some interest. The Kyuubi chuckles a bit, and asks, why is that, mortal? Naruto answers, I'm falling to my death. Plus, I figured that if I die, you die, also. The Kyuubi replies, fine you stupid mortal, here's your rent. Now scram. Naruto's azure blue eyes change to red and his pupils become slitted, plus his nails and canine teeth grow longer and sharper. Naruto's hair also grows longer and spikier, and the whisker-like marks on his cheeks widen and thicken. He then bites his thumb open, and smears the blood over his palm. Naruto then weaves a string of hand seals. Boar right pointing arrow, dog right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, ram. He yells, Kachiyose no Jutsu, summoning technique. In a puff of smoke a toad appears. The giant toad is colored a dull, rusty red, but around his eyes and on his lips and chest are brighter red markings. Over his left eye, he received a scar at some point in the past. His tongue has a series of stud-like piercings on both the upper and lower side. He often wears a large blue happy vest that has the kanji sha, ebi, on the back, and always carries a massive dosu blade at his hip. He also carries a large kiseru pipe which he often smokes. Naruto sigh a refreshing sigh. He then asks, are you Gamabunta? The toad answers, yes. Who's asking? Naruto replies, hello Gamabunta. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, the Konohagakure no Kijin. The true successor of Zabuza Momochi, former member of the 7 Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist. And now the newest apprentice of Jiraiya, who is the pervy sage of Konoha. Oh, I'm also the son of the Yondaime Hokage, and Kushina Uzumaki. Gamabunta says, ah, so you're his brat. Okay then, I have a test for you. Naruto asks, what kind of test is it, Bunta-sama? Gamabunta answers, all you have to do is stand on top of my head until sundown. If you fail, you will not be able to summon one of my kind again. Deal? Naruto says, you got yourself a deal, Bunta-sama. This will be easy, I'll totally win this, Datbeo. From the first jump, Naruto realized that his confidence wouldn't exactly help him here. So for the rest of the day, Naruto used his chakra to stay firmly planted on the toad's head. When the sky turned dark, Naruto was standing and unconscious on top of the giant toad's head. Gamabunta says, Jiraiya, tell him that he won the bet. I respect him as a toad summoner. Also tell him that we need to drink together sometime. Also train him in the standard toad jutsu. I wouldn't want a summoner to disrespect us. Jiraiya smiles. He replies, I will. So what are you going to do? Return to Mount Myoboku, or? Gamabunta answers, I'll hang out here for a bit. It's been a while. Goodbye, Jiraiya. The toad then jumps into the night, never to be seen for the rest of that night. The next day, Naruto is at the training ground when he hears a perverse giggle. He goes to investigate and sees Jiraiya doing research. This just means he is peeping on naked women who are enjoying time at the hot springs. Naruto sighs and asks, pervy sage, are you going to start training me today, or what? Jiraiya answers, the blatant disrespect Gaki. When are you going to stop calling me that? Naruto replies, when you stop being a damn pervert. Jiraiya dejectedly sighed and then says, I guess that you mean never. As Jiraiya returns to peeping, Naruto sighs. He then makes some hand seals. Ram right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, ram. The blonde then says, Haremu no Jutsu, harem technique. After using the shadow clone technique to create many copies of the user and their shadow clones each perform the technique to change their appearances into beautiful naked women. The naked forms swarm their target and hang upon them, the intention being to overpower targets with lustful thoughts. Jiraiya says, okay, I'll train you. You didn't have to bring out an A- rank jutsu just for me to train you. Let's go. Now back at the training ground, Jiraiya says, now that you are a toad summoner, you are expected to learn their jutsu. Their signature being the Gamayuden, toad oil bullet, but they also use Suiden and Kaiden jutsu. Mainly Suiden jutsu. I will be teaching you the Gamayuden. To do this jutsu, the user converts their chakra into an extremely sticky oil and spits it out as a huge mass or as a barrage of small bullets. Those caught by it will find it difficult to move, and simply washing the oil away with regular water won't be easy. If you add a Kaiden jutsu, the oil will be enveloped in flames in an instant. Naruto asks, is there hand seals I had to do? Jiraiya answers, no. Just convert your chakra into an extremely sticky oil, and spit it out. So Naruto does exactly that. He yells, Gamayuden, toad oil bullet. Naruto then spits out a single small bullet of oil from his mouth, that hits a tree. Jiraiya says, that is a good first attempt. Now practice until you feel like you can get it down to my standards. He does so in a week. The next 2 weeks, Naruto continues to practice the rest of Zabuza's jutsu, which he gets battle ready. Naruto then sarcastically thinks, it's time to fight a Jinchuriki. Great. Team Kakashi is watching the Chunin selection exam finals, when a bunch of feathers rain down from the sky that makes everyone fall asleep. Naruto and Sasuke watch as Gaara flees from the stadium, being carried by his siblings. The blonde looks at Kakashi, who subtly nods in response. Naruto chuckled evilly as he put on his mask and pulled his hood over his head. A mist settles over the boy. Once the mist dissipates, Naruto is gone. He disappeared in a mist shunshin. Naruto then appears in front of Akumo Nin and decapitates them. A mist envelopes around the blonde, following him, as Naruto is following Gaara. He is chopping up anybody with Akumo, Ato or Tsunahite 8. Naruto continued to follow Gaara, who stopped 4 miles away from Konoha. He sees Gaara with sand covering his right arm, and a new tail made of sand. Gaara's right eye is now black, with yellow irises and pupils that each takes the shape of a black four-pointed star with 4 black dots around it. The blonde thinks, shit. Gaara, in a demonic voice says, nice of you to show up. So I could kill you. Naruto replies, that's what you think. Chakra then explodes from Naruto as it takes the form of an orange-colored fox demon that has 9 tails that are swishing back and forth. He also adds some of his, and the Kyuubi's killing intent into the area, which washes into Konoha, scaring every shinobi fighting, except the 2 Kage, who are now fighting together to kill Orochimaru. Then a thick mist covers the area, with Naruto quickly disappearing into it. Naruto then gives out a demonic chuckle that seems to emanate from everywhere in the mist, and then decides to slash at Gaara's neck, only for the sand arm to block it. Naruto disappears once again, and attacks Gaara from behind, only for the sand tail to block it. The blonde then smashes the side of Kabikirabocho into Gaara's left side. He yells, Gamayuden, toad oil bullet. Naruto then spits out a single huge bullet of oil from his mouth, that covers Gaara. Naruto then weaves a string of hand seals. Snake right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, tiger. He yells, Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique. Oil-covered Gaara then ignites into a big ball of flames. As the mist reforms, Naruto disappears into it. He then weaves a huge string of hand seals. Ox right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, hare right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, dog right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, yang water right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, dragon right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, hare right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, dragon right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, yang water right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, bird. The blonde yells, Sweden. Suiryuden no Jutsu, water release, water dragon bullet technique. Naruto manipulates water into the shape of a dragon, which he then directed at a target. The water dragon then crashes upon the target, which makes him fly across the mist, and right next to a shadow clone. The clone then goes through a string of hand seals. Snake right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, hare right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, hare right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, clap hands. He yells, Suiro no Jutsu, water prison technique. With a quick burst of chakra, Gaara is free. Gaara then sends his sand arm towards Naruto, who weaves some hand seals. Tiger right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, rat. He yells, Sweden. Sweden no Jutsu, water release, water bullet technique. The Uzumaki expels a large quantity of water in the form of a powerful torrent towards Gaara that hits him dead in the arm. With the arm, and by proxy Gaara is stunned. Naruto then uses the back of Kabikirabocho and throws it at Gaara. When the sword hits Gaara, the Suna Jinchuriki flies back into 5 shadow clones. The clones kick or punch the target into the air, each yelling, Uzumaki, as they do so. While the target is airborne, the 5th, and final clone appears above Gaara, and brings Kabikirabocho down onto the redhead. A deep gash appears on Gaara's stomach, as he plummets back down to the ground. Gaara then covers his body from the waist up in sand. This heals Gaara, who lashes out with both sand arms, dissipating the mist. Naruto, who now has Kabikirabocho in his hands, replies, Welp. I guess the mist will now be useless. The blonde then calls onto the Kyuubi's chakra. Naruto gets surrounded by a layer of red, wispy chakra. His eyes change color to red and his pupils become slitted, plus his nails and canine teeth grow longer and sharper. Naruto's hair also grows longer and spikier, and the whisker-like marks on his cheeks widen and thicken. Gaara then rushes Naruto, who blocks a sandarm with Kabikirabocho, while the other sandarm forms a giant blade out of sand to slice through Naruto with, only for the red chakra cloak to protect the blonde. Naruto then smacks Gaara into the air. As Gaara is falling back down, Naruto shoves Kabikirabocho between Gaara's buttocks. An explosion occurs covering the area with smoke. Naruto then weaves a string of hand seals. Snake right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, tiger. He yells, Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique. The smoke then explodes into a fiery ball, which quickly dies down as Gaara turns into the full Ichibi. Gaara then makes a single hand seal. Ram, he screams, Tanuki Niri no Jutsu, feigning sleep technique. Gaara then falls asleep, giving control to the Ichibi. The Ichibi is a sandy brown colored tanuki, with dark blue cursed seal markings all over its face, body, and tail. It has a jagged, concave mouth with no tongue, and the sclerae of its eyes are black, with yellow irides and pupils that each takes the shape of a black four-pointed star with 4 black dots around it. The Abishi yells, I'm free. I'm free. He then looks at Naruto and continues, and I just found the perfect thing to kill. Isn't that right, Kyuubi? Naruto hears the Kyuubi, who growled, and says, I'd kill that stupid tanuki called Shukaku, but you are too weak, and I don't want to have a weak container. So summon the damned toad. Naruto then weaves a string of hand seals. Boar right pointing arrow, dog right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, ram. He yells, Kachiyose no Jutsu, summoning technique. In a puff of smoke Gamabunta appears. Gamabunta then asks, why am I here, Naruto? Naruto answers, sorry Bunta-sama, but I'm fighting the Ichibi no Shukaku. I need your help. Gamabunta replies, I'm getting really sick, and tired of being called to fight Biju. Okay, I'll help. Gamabunta jumps high into the air, while making a single hand seal. Tiger. While in the air, he spits water from their mouth which are shaped as orb-shaped projectiles. Only for Shukaku to pound on its stomach with its arm, producing a loud sound. The external pressure from the pound forces a ball of wind from Shukaku's large mouth, firing it like a cannonball. This blocks the water. This repeated pattern continues for a while. Naruto asks, how do we stop him? Gamabunta answers, wake the sleeping Gaki up. Naruto then asks, can you get close enough to stop Shukaku's movements for a while? Gamabunta answers, not for long, but I can. Naruto replies, good. Gamabunta then gets close to Shukaku, and stops his movement for a second. In this second, Naruto rockets off Gamabunta's head, and closes the distance in the said second. Naruto then uses the flat of Kibikirabocho, and brings it down onto Gaara's head. Gaara then awakens, and plummets down to the ground, as Shukaku yells, no. When Naruto lands on his feet, his legs buckle, and he falls face first into the dirt. As he is using his chin to crawl his way towards Gaara, Naruto says, it's almost unbearable, isn't it? The pain of being all alone. I know that feeling. I've been there, in that dark and lonely place, but now there are others, other people who mean a lot to me. I care more about them than I do myself, and I won't let anyone hurt them. That's why I'll never give up. I will stop you, even if I have to kill you. They saved me from myself. They rescued me from my loneliness. They were the first to accept me as who I am. They're my friends. Gaara says, I saw that look in your eye. The look of a killer and of death. Was it fake or real? I don't know. Perhaps the companionship of an evil person is preferable to loneliness. That is when Kankuro and Tamari appear. They yell, don't touch our Ni-san. Naruto replies, I won't. Gaara then says, Nei-san, Ni-san. Let's just leave. So that is exactly what they do. Naruto turns his head to see Kakashi. He asks, so, Kakashi-sensei? How much of that did you see? Kakashi answers, who wouldn't see a giant tanuki fighting a giant toad, even if you were 4 miles away? I saw the ending, and heard your speech. A leader-worthy speech if I ever heard one. Kakashi then picks up Naruto and Kabikirabocho. He then walks back to Konoha. A week after the invasion, Naruto Uzumaki and Shikamaru Nara are standing in front of the Sandaime Hokage. Shikamaru has narrow brown eyes and a typical expression suggesting he is either bored or irritated. He has shoulder-length black hair tied in a spiky ponytail. He wears a short-sleeved gray jacket with green-edged sleeves and the rudimentary Nara clan symbol on the back, under which is a green-lined mesh armor t-shirt. He also wears brown pants, a pair of his clan's traditional silver hoop earrings, and wears his blue Konoha Hite 8 around his left arm. The Sandaime says, "Hello Naruto Uzumaki, Shikamaru Nara. Do you two know why you are here?" Shikamaru answers, "How troublesome, but is it the results of the Chunin exams?" The Sandaime replies, "You are correct, Shikamaru. Now, when a disruption to the exams happen, only one person may be promoted to Chunin, but since only one of you were in the actual exams, I can promote both of you. So with that said, congratulations to you both. Here are your Chunin flag jackets, Chunin Uzumaki, Chunin Nara. May you both fan the fire that protects the leaf. You two are dismissed." The Sandaime then hands them their flag jackets. As they leave the tower, Naruto asks, "So are you going to wear the jacket, or not?" Shikamaru answers, "It's too troublesome to not wear it." "You?" Naruto answers, "I'll probably stitch the padding into my hoodie, or something. The flag jacket just doesn't fit with my outfit." Quote, "Throughout that night, Naruto does exactly that. His belt has 6 pouches down the front of it. On the shoulders of the is the neck guard, not that anyone could tell, as it was stitched into the hoodie itself. And obviously the extra shoulder padding, which is now white to match the hoodie, and has the Uzumaki swirl on them. He also stitched light padding in the chest, back, and sides. Just enough to protect him, but not impede his movements." Naruto then wakes up the next day, gets dressed in his new clothes, and goes to Team 7's training ground. When he got there, he saw that Sasuke and Sakura were already there. But what shocked him was that Kakashi was already there. So he does the normal, and most sane thing to do. Check if it was a genjutsu. Twice. Naruto asks, "Why are you here, Kakashi-sensei?" Kakashi answers, "Well, I thought that since one of my sweet little genin made Chunin that I would teach them, and their teammates better." Naruto then replies, "Was it that? Or did you get verbally beaten by Hokage Gigi?" Kakashi just coughs, and holds up a piece of paper. Naruto then coughs into his hand, while he says, "Whipped." The Hitaki ignores Naruto, and says, "This piece of paper is called chakra induction paper. When this paper is exposed to even the slightest hint of chakra, it reacts according to the chakra's latent element. Fire. The paper will ignite and turn to ash. Wind. The paper will split in two. Lightning. The paper will wrinkle. Earth. The paper will turn to dirt and crumble away. Water. The paper will become wet, damp. If the paper does one or more of these things, then whatever it does is your elemental affinity, and/or affinities. Shinobi have an easier time learning to create and control a chakra nature that matches their affinity, although even then it may take a number of years. Shinobi are not limited to the nature they have an affinity for, and it is in fact common for Junin to have mastered 2 natures. Although it is technically possible to master all 5 natures, it is very rare because of how much training is involved. Here are your pieces of paper, Naruto, Sakura. Naruto grabs the piece of paper, and asks, "What about Sasuke?" Kakashi answers, "During the month of training you 3 had, I tested Sasuke's affinity already. It's lightning." Sakura channels chakra into the piece of paper. Her paper turns to dirt and crumbles away. While Naruto on the other hand does the same thing, and his paper splits in 2. Kakashi says, "Sakura has an earth affinity, while Naruto has a wind affinity, and Sasuke has a lightning affinity. That is good, with Naruto and Sasuke both being able to use fire. While Naruto can water, you 3 can use all 5 elemental chakra natures." After a couple seconds, Kakashi asks, "Other than Sakura, have any of you done the nature exercises?" Naruto asks, "What are those, Kakashi-sensei?" Kakashi answers, "They are training exercises to help master an element. For futon, wind release, the first step is cutting a leaf in half. While for doton, earth release, the first step is to crumble a rock, and then return said rock to its previous state. For katon, fire release, the first step is to burn the center of a leaf, but not the edge. Then for sweeten, water release, the first step is to bring the moisture out of a leaf allowing it to pool on the top. Finally for raiden, lightning release, The first step is to shoot static through a small stone until it breaks in half. Sakura asks, what is the point of them, Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi answers, they double as chakra control exercises. Doing them also makes your jutsu stronger, as it makes it easier to use the jutsu and control the chakra. Naruto then asks, so how do we do the exercise? Kakashi answers, for the futon exercise, you have to grind your chakra together, making it as sharp as possible to cut the leaf. Now Naruto make some kage bunshin and get to it. Naruto do the katen and suiten exercises also. For the doden exercise, just do as I said, but on repeat. So each of them do the exercises for a week. Meanwhile, Jiraiya is talking with his sensei. Hiruzen says, Jiraiya, I'm getting too old for this job. I would have died if it wasn't for the raikage. So would you please think about becoming the Godem Hokage? Jiraiya thinks about it for a long while. He then says, Sensei, you do know there is another Sannin available to become the Hokage. When she is done, I'll become Hokage. I was hoping to train Naruto on how to run my spy network. I wouldn't have time, and I most definitely don't have it to become Hokage. You know that it's just not for me. I'm sorry, Sensei. Hiruzen asks, who so you want to bring with you? Anbu members? Perhaps a blonde-haired Chunin? Jiraiya smirks and answers, you know me too well, Sensei. I would like to take Naruto with me, so that I can teach him the Rasengan. Hiruzen smiled, as he replies, Minato's jutsu, huh? I'll allow it. Jiraiya says, thanks Sensei. He then shunshuns to Team 7's training ground. When he got there, he saw Naruto and his clones doing multiple elemental nature exercises. A group of Naruto clones is doing futon, another is doing katen, and the final group is doing suiten. Jiraiya says, hey, Gaki. Stop training, we have a mission to go on. Just you and me. So, what are you waiting for? Follow me. Naruto nods, dispels all of the clones, and follows Jiraiya. Once they reach the gate, he asks, what's the mission? Jiraiya answers, we are going to find my teammate, Tsunade Senju. Sensei wants her to be the Godem Hokage. Naruto, with a smirk on his face says, well then, pervy sage. Let's go find the last Senju, Titibeo. As Naruto and Jiraiya are walking through a town, Jiraiya says, so, today we are going to start your training. Naruto asks, what are you going to teach me, pervy sage? Jiraiya answers, I'm going to teach you the Rasengan. It is a jutsu created by your Tusan. The toad sage then raises his hand at a 90-degree angle, and forms a spinning ball of chakra into his hands. Naruto then asks, what do I have to do first? Jiraiya then throws Naruto a water balloon. As Naruto catches it, he answers, you have to pop it with your chakra. Jiraiya then gives Naruto a demonstration. He says, I have to get some info on Tsunade. I'll be back. He pulls out a bucket full of balloons, and gives it to Naruto. Naruto grabs a balloon, and pours his chakra into the balloon. After days and days of trying to pop the balloons, Naruto starts directing his chakra in different directions, and it pops. After popping the balloon, Naruto shows it to Jiraiya. Jiraiya thought that was quick, it only took 2 weeks. He then says, this time you must pop a rubber ball. Now with this you have to do the same thing as last time, just add more power to your chakra. Naruto grabbed the rubber ball, and poured more chakra into the ball than last time. He directed his chakra to move in different directions. After a week of doing this, Naruto got it down perfectly. The blonde once again shows the progress to Jiraiya. Jiraiya says, now for the final step for the Rasengan. It's called containment. You have to combine the first 2 steps, but don't pop the balloon this time. Naruto grabs the bucket full of balloons. He does what he did with the first balloon, then what he did with the rubber ball, and then Naruto combines them. It popped a second later. Jiraiya says, that is okay, Gaki. It took me 3 months to master. It took Minato 3 years to create. So take your time. In any way, I found the general location of Tsunade. Naruto asks, so, where is she? Jiraiya answers, Tanzaku quarters. Naruto replies, then let's go. What are we waiting for? Jiraiya answers, that's the thing Naruto, she won't be there for another week. So, we will go to the next town over, which is called Shukuba town, and then travel from there. So when they got to Shukuba town, a beautiful woman with long, straight black hair and large, dark brown eyes. She wears a short, strapless blue dress with two thin gold belts wrapped around it, along with a pair of black strap-on heels, dangling earrings and an intricate necklace. She says, "Are you Jiraiya-sama, the writer of Icha Icha? I'm a huge fan, and I'd like to do some of those things with you. So, what do you say, Jiraiya-sama?" Jiraiya answers, "Naruto, you are on your own for a while. Check into the hotel, and don't do anything I wouldn't do." Jiraiya then walks off with the girl, leaving Naruto to get the hotel room. After a couple of hours chilling in the room, Naruto hears a knock on the door. He grabs Kabikirabocho while walking towards the door. He then looks through the peephole to see two people. The first person is a fairly tall man of fair complexion. He had onyx eyes, under which were long, pronounced tear troughs. He had jet black hair that was pulled back in a low ponytail, and his face was framed with center-parted bangs that extended to his chin. He wears the standard Akatsuki cloak, not that Naruto knew that, and a slashed Konoha forehead protector to symbolize his broken ties with the village. The cloak's high collar would obscure his ponytail. He would sometimes unbutton his cloak to mid-chest and rest his left arm there, rather than in the sleeve. Under his cloak he wore clothes similar to the rest of Akatsuki. Mesh armor with navy accents under an identical t-shirt with a simple white belt around the waist and dark blue pants. On his right ring finger was his Akatsuki ring, which was red and bore the kanji for vermilion, Zu. He wears light blue nail polish on his fingers and toes and a necklace that had 3 silver rings with red gems inside them. The second person is a very tall, muscular shinobi, and was the tallest member in Akatsuki, again, not that Naruto knew this. He had a distinctive shark-like appearance, complete with pale, blue-gray skin. He has small, round, white eyes, 3 sets of curved facial markings under his eyes, gills on his shoulders, and sharp triangular teeth, the latter of which is a shared trait amongst most of the other members of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist. He also styled his blue hair in the form of a shark fin. As a member of Akatsuki, he also wore dark purple nail polish. He also switched to a modified version of Kirigakure's forehead protector, which covered his ears as well. After defecting from the village, he donned the typical cloak members of Akatsuki wore, and underneath it he was bare-chested. He also wore a brown sash across the front and back of his cloak to hold Samahata in place. He wore his Akatsuki ring on his left ring finger, bearing the kanji for South, Nan, which was yellow in color. Seeing that it wasn't Jiraiya, he backed away from the door, lifted Kabikirabocho over his head, and slashed through the door, once vertically and once horizontally. As the door falls to the ground, Naruto asks, "Who are you, and what do you want?" The blue man says, "Itachi, he has Kabikirabocho. We were told that he was the dead last. This means he killed Zabuza Momochi. This is my battle, don't interfere." Itachi replies, "Kisame fight, just don't injure him too much. We need him alive." Kisame then swings his sword down onto Naruto, who blocks it. He then swings again, which Naruto jumps away from. Naruto then swings Kabikirabocho at Kisame, who easily blocks the sword. Naruto then jumps into the air, and attempts to kick Kisame in the face, which he blocks. The blonde then punches Kisame in the head. Kisame pushes the Uzumaki away, and slashes Naruto in half, only for Naruto to disappear in a puff of smoke. 2 clones then appears, and goes through a string of hand seals. Snake right pointing arrow ram right pointing arrow horse right pointing arrow hare right pointing arrow ram right pointing arrow horse right pointing arrow hare right pointing arrow snake right pointing arrow ox right pointing arrow clap hands. They yell, "Suiro no Jutsu, water prison technique." The real Naruto then appears, and weaves a string of hand seals. Snake right pointing arrow ram right pointing arrow monkey right pointing arrow boar right pointing arrow horse right pointing arrow tiger. He yells, "Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique." A medium-sized fireball shoots at Kisame when he escapes from the water prison. Another clone jumps up into the air from behind Naruto, and weaves a string of hand seals. Snake right pointing arrow ram right pointing arrow boar right pointing arrow horse right pointing arrow bird right pointing arrow clap hands together. As Naruto shoves his palm at the fireball, he yells, "Futon. Repusho, wind release, gale palm." As the gale combines with the fireball, it grows huge and explodes against Kisame. Naruto then jumps into the fire and slashes at Kisame, who splashes into a puddle of water. Kisame then appears and says, "You are indeed worthy to wield Kabikira Bocho." Itachi interrupts Kisame and says, "But you Naruto Uzumaki are coming with us." That is when someone weaves a string of hand seals. Snake right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, dragon right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, dragon right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, both palms on ground. They then hear a voice, who yells, "Kachiyose! Gamaguchi Shibari!" summoning, Toad Mouth Bind. They turn to see Jiraiya, who summons only the esophagus of a giant toad from Mount Myoboku. The esophagus then grows around Itachi and Kisame, only for them to Kawarimi with Naruto and Kabikira Bocho. Jiraiya and Naruto then watches as the two S-rank missing nin disappear in a shunshin. The Toad Sage says, "We are going to leave to find Tsunade." Now, as they are walking through Tanzaku quarters, Jiraiya bumps into a girl around Naruto's age. The girl is tall, fair-skinned with brown eyes and straight white hair. Her hair has shoulder-length bangs that frame her face and the rest reaches her lower back. She also has red lines under her eyes and on her chin. She wears a gray, kimono-style blouse with no sleeves, held closed by a broad, dark bluish-gray obi. Over that is a grass-green haori with two red circles on each side, and a butterfly on the back. Choco also wears green pants, and black open-toed sandals with low heels. The girl says, "Hey! Watch! Tusan?" Jiraiya is shocked, and looks at the girl. He says, "Hi." The girl awkwardly replies, "Choco, Choco Senju." Jiraiya says, "Hello Choco, how are you? Is Tsunade around?" Choco answers, "I'm good. Ka-chan is at a bar. I'll lead you to her, Tusan." She then looks at Naruto, and asks, "Who are you?" Naruto answers, "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I am a chunin of Konohagakure, and the Konohagakure no Kijin. The true successor of Zabuza Momochi, who is a former member of the 7 Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist. And, I am now the newest apprentice of Jiraiya, the pervy sage of Konoha." Choco laughs a bit, and replies, "I like you. Now follow me pervy Tusan, Naruto-kun." Jiraiya just slumps down, depressed and sad. He says, "Not even my own daughter respects the awesomeness that is me. Damn Gaki, I blame you." Naruto laughs, and follows Choco. Choco then asks, "Come on pervy Tusan, or do you not wish to see Ka-chan?" A walk to the bar later, Choco yells, "Ka-chan! Pervy Tusan is here." A blonde woman, a black-haired woman, and a pig look at the three. They're, in order, Tsunade Senju, Shizune, and Taunton. Tsunade is a fair-skinned woman with brown eyes and straight blonde hair that parts above her forehead. Her hair has shoulder-length bangs that frame her face and the rest reaches her lower back, which she keeps tied in 2 loose ponytails. Tsunade often wears a grass-green haori with the kanji for gamble, do, on the back, inside a red circle. Underneath she wears a gray, kimono-style blouse with no sleeves, held closed by a broad, dark bluish-gray obi that matches her pants. Her blouse is closed quite low, revealing her sizable cleavage. She wears open-toed, strappy black sandals with high heels. She has red nail polish on both her fingernails and toenails and uses a soft pink lipstick. She wears the Shodai Hokage's necklace. Shizune is a fair-skinned woman of average height and slender build with onyx eyes and jet black hair. Her hair is straight and shoulder-length with bangs that cover her ears and frame her face. Normally, Shizune is seen in a long bluish-black kimono with white trimmings, held closed by a white obi, and open-toed sandals with low heels. Taunton is of a light pinkish color, much like any other ordinary pig. Her cheeks blush in a darker shade of the same tint as her skin. She is always seen wearing a pearl collar and a dark red jacket. Tsunade says, "Great. Another teammate. What do you want, pervert?" Jiraiya answers, "Konoha requests your service once again. The council has deemed you to be the Godem Hokage." Tsunade yells, "No." Jiraiya replies, "You've changed Tsunaheim." Tsunade says, "I'm not going to do a deadman's job." Jiraiya responds, "But Tsunaheim, sensei is still alive." Naruto just huffs, as Tsunade turns to the blonde. She asks, "Who are you Gaki?" Naruto answers, Chunin Uzumaki, Naruto Uzumaki. Anyway, pervy sage, I thought we were here to get the legendary Tsunade Senju, who is the greatest Iryo nin in the world, not some shriveled up, Pastor Prime hag in a hench? Choco yells, what did you say? Chakra then explodes from Naruto as it takes the form of an orange-colored fox demon that has 9 tails that are swishing back and forth. He also adds some of his, and the Kyuubi's killing intent into the area. Naruto answers, I said that Tsunade is not worthy to have the position of Hokage. Tsunade asks, if I'm not then who is? Naruto answers, pervy sage is one, along with Kakashi Hitaki, and as much as I hate the crippled, racist, extremist, Danzo Shimura. Also your former lover, Dan was worthy to be Hokage. Tsunade growls, and asks, what would you know? Naruto relaxes, and replies, I grew up idolizing the legendary Sannin. The 3 of you were the greatest shinobi ever in my eyes. The Sannin were held on a pedestal that was even higher than Jiji and the Yondaime. I grew up wanting to meet the 3 of you, but now that I have? I now see why Jiji had, and has so much regret about you 3. You, Ba-chan. One of the last remaining Senju, granddaughter of the Shodai Hokage. Addicted to gambling but chronically unlucky. Revolutionized the Iryo nin system and the entire system of rules that medical ninja abide by, and stricken with grief and guilt when the 2 people she loved the most died. Orochimaru Teme. The prodigy, although a mad scientist that is enamored by immortality. He was Jiji's prized pupil, who didn't even learn a damn thing. Pervy sage. A sage, a writer, a sensei of many, and despite being a pervert, he deserves the most respect in this room. Naruto then says, I respect Tsunade greatly, but you Ba-chan? I have no respect to give to you. Jiraiya says, Gaki, that was harsh. Naruto just shrugs, and takes a sip of Tsunade's sake. After a couple seconds of silence, Naruto replies, I just say it how I see it, and right now Ba-chan is not worthy enough to be Hokage. I bet even old man Tucci can take Ba-chan down. Shoko asks, who is this Tucci person? Jiraiya answers, Tucci Ichiraku, he owns a ramen stand called Ichiraku Ramen. Tsunade's anger spikes. She says, well, then if you think me, a legendary Sannin is weak? How about we have a fight? Naruto then asks, do you even know how I got promoted to Chunin? Shizune then for the first time during this conversation, speaks. She asks, why does that matter? Jiraiya answers, he fought the Ichibi no Shukaku's Jinchuriki, who went full on Biju. Well, that is what Kakashi's summoned Pakun says. From the gate I saw the Gaki Sumun Bunta. Tsunade says, I thought with that sword on his back that he must be compensating for something. Naruto growls. He says, this sword is Kabikira Bocho. It is one of the Kiri no Nana Daiken, 7 great swords of the mist. I will not have you disrespect it like that. So let's go outside. Or are you, a Sannin, too scared to fight a measly Chunin? Tsunade answers, let's go Gaki. The 2 then walk outside. Shizune then asks, shouldn't we stop them? Jiraiya simply walks towards the door. He answers, only if it gets out of hand. Which I know it will. The 2 just stare at Jiraiya. When the sage reaches the door, he asks, are you coming, or not? Naruto lays Kabikira Bocho against his shoulder. Imitating Zabuza, he spreads his feet apart getting close to the ground. Chakra then again explodes from Naruto as it takes the form of an orange-colored fox demon that has 9 tails that are swishing back and forth. He also adds some of his, and the Kyuubi's killing intent into the area. Thick mist envelopes the 2 as Naruto says, there are 8 points in the human body, in which I can kill you. They are the larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular, subclavian artery, kidneys, and heart. It's your choice? Tsunade barely chuckles, as she asks, how about a bet? Naruto replies, I'll win, but tell me this bet. Tsunade says, you can use anything in your repertoire to beat me, but I'll use this single finger. As she raises her right index finger, she says, if you lose, you and Konoha will leave me alone, but if you win I'll become the Godem Hokage. Deal? Naruto smirks, and says, deal. He then disappears into the mist, and reappears behind Tsunade. Naruto quickly swings the blade horizontally, trying to bisect the Sannin. As Tsunade jumps away from the blade, Naruto creates 5 shadow clones. When Tsunade lands, she is surrounded by the clones, who kick or punch the target into the air, each yelling, Uzumaki, as they do so. While the target is airborne, the fifth and final clone appears above Tsunade and brings Kabikirabocho down onto the blonde, using the back of the blade. She plummets back down to the ground. When Tsunade stands up, she unleashes her chakra, dispersing the mist. Naruto is right in front of her, a swing is already in motion. Tsunade then stops the blade, which is then flung away from her with the use of chakra. While Naruto is flying away from Tsunade, he weaves through hand seals. Snake right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, tiger. He yells, Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique. A medium-sized fireball shoots at Tsunade. Naruto then makes a shadow clone, who appears next to him, and weaves a string of hand seals. Snake right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, clap hands together. As the Naruto clone shoves his palm at the fireball, he yells, Futon. Repusho, wind release, gale palm. As the gale combines with the fireball, it grows huge and explodes against Tsunade. Naruto then jumps into the fire, he slashes at Tsunade. Tsunade just ducks under the slash, and smashes her finger into the ground, creating a fixture. Naruto jumps away, and lands at the end of the fixture. Tsunade asks, why are you so serious about this? Naruto answers, to be Hokage? It is one of my dreams. Choco asks, what is your other dream? Naruto answers, Zabazaz, and my dream is to end the Yondaime Mizukage, Yagura Karatachi's reign of terror. Although, he wanted to become the Mizukage, but I'll leave becoming Mizukage to someone else. I just want to end Yagura Karatachi's reign of terror. Tsunade chuckles. She says, that is quite a dream. Especially if you can't land a scratch on me. The Naruto in front of her then disappears in a puff of smoke. Naruto's voice then rings out from behind her. As she turns around, his arm is bent at a 90-degree angle, forming a Rasengan. The Uzumaki jumps towards the Sannin, and would have connected, if it didn't fade from existence. She then asks, why teach him a jutsu he'll never be able to master? Jiraiya answers, he's the only one who can. Tsunade then says, how about another bet, Gaki? Naruto thinks for a moment. He then replies, shit. I'll bite. What's the bet? Tsunade says, if you can master the Rasengan in a week, I will become the Godem Hokage. I'll even give you this. As she points at the necklace she is wearing, Tsunade continues, but if you lose, you will give me all the money in your wallet, and leave me alone. What do you say? Naruto answers, I say, I'll do it in half the time. Tsunade says, I'll give you a week. Let's go Shizune, Cho-chan. Don't forget Taunton. As the four leave the area, Jiraiya says, you're quite ballsy, Gaki. Naruto replies, I ain't the show-off, number one unpredictable, noisy ninja for a reason. Jiraiya laughs for a bit, and leaves to go to their own hotel room, with Naruto following the sage. A week later, and Naruto has mastered the Rasengan. Right now, Naruto is fighting a shadow clone with Kabikirabocho when he hears some footsteps. He says, I know you're there. I can hear you. A young woman appears in front of Naruto. This woman is Amayuri Ringo, a member of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. Amayuri is relatively short in comparison with the other members of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. She has long, red hair, black eyes, and together with Akiri Hide-8, she also wears a simple cloth around her head, distinctively tied at both sides so as the ends of the material protrude upwards, while the remainder of hair is allowed to flow downwards. She wears a loose, pin-striped long-sleeved shirt with a dark obi around the waist, black pants which got much looser near the ends, resembling hakama, and striped leg warmers. Like all the other members of her generation of swordsmen, she wore bandages loosely tied around the neck and had jagged teeth. Naruto then asks, what's the beautiful wielder of Kiba doing gracing me with her presence? Amayuri answers, charmer, huh? Anyway, I saw your fight with the Sannin. You did well, but I want to fight you. To the death. Naruto replies, why would you want to fight a lowly chunin like me? Amayuri yells, you are not getting away from this. The wielder of Kiba then crosses the blades in an X shape. Amayuri then sends bolts of lightning to electrocute Naruto. She yells, Raiden. Raiga, lightning release, lightning fang. Which Naruto blocks with Kabikirabocho. Naruto then envelopes the area with a thick mist. He then appears behind Amayuri and slashes. Only for her to jump away, but still gets a shallow cut across her back. Amayuri buries Kiba's blades into the ground and then sends out an electrical charge towards the sky, which in turn causes lightning to fall from the sky, decimating the immediate area around her, burning everything to a crisp. She yells, Raiden! Sandageto, lighting release, Thundergate. The mist clears with only a single burnt log visible. Amayuri then quickly turns around to see Kabikirabocho flying towards, which she jumps over. Ringo then hears a puff of smoke erupt from behind her. From behind Amayuri, Naruto catches the flying blade and swings, aiming for Amayuri's neck. Amayuri jumps away from the killing blow. Holding the Kiba swords over her head like birch rods, Amayuri summons a bolt of lightning from the sky to shock anyone in their immediate vicinity. She yells, Raito Jutsu! Rakurai, Thunder Swords technique, Thunderbolt. As the lightning hits Naruto, he disappears in a puff of smoke. Naruto then appears behind her, and weaves a string of hand seals. Ox right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, hare right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, dog right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, yang water right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, dragon right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, hare right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, dragon right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, yang water right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, bird. The blonde yells, Sweden. Suiryuden no Jutsu, water release, water dragon bullet technique. Naruto manipulates water into the shape of a dragon, which he then directed at Amayuri. The water dragon then crashes upon the wielder of Kiba. As Amayuri is flying away from Naruto, a shadow clone appears and weaves some hand seals. Snake right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, tiger. He yells, Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique. A medium-sized fireball shoots at Amayuri. Another clone jumps up into the air from behind Naruto and weaves a string of hand seals. Snake right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow clap hands together. As Naruto shoves his palm at the fireball, he yells, Futon. Repusho, wind release, gale palm. As the gale combines with the fireball, it grows huge and explodes against Amayuri. When Ringo falls to the ground, then Naruto jumps into the fire and slashes at Amayuri, who ducks under the slash. This is when the fire dies down. She then sees 6 Narutos standing around her. The clones then kick or punch the target into the air, each yelling, Uzumaki, as they do so. While Amayuri is airborne, the 5th clone appears just below Amayuri and smashes a Rasengan into her stomach. The real Naruto then appears above the wielder of Kiba and brings Kabikirabocho down onto the redhead. As Amayuri plummets back down to the ground, she is bisected by Kabikirabocho. Amayuri, with the last of her strength, says, Thanks for the fight. I was going to die anyway. I now see why Zabuza-kun let you wield Kabikirabocho. I'll now do the same. Find someone who can wield Kiba and train them. Here is all of my jutsu. Goodbye, Naruto-kun. With that, Amayuri Ringo, the wielder of Kiba, is dead. Naruto then looks at Kiba. They are a pair of swords, each with slim and straight double-edged blades. Both blades also have an upward curved bladed prong near the tip of one side of the blade and another one near the base of the blade's other side. At their bases are smooth brown hilts with a round gray hilt. As Naruto seals the blades into a scroll, Jiraiya appears. He says, That was quite a fight there, Gaki. I see that you mastered the Rasengan. So now that you have 2 of the 7, are you going to collect them all, or master the 2 you got? Naruto answers, master them, and then I could give them to Kona his weapon mistress, Tenten Higurashi. She is a genin under Might Guy. Jiraiya just nods. As the sage laughs, he replies, well then, let's just go back to the hotel, and wait for the rest of the week. I don't want another mist swordsman coming after you. So they go back to the hotel they're staying at. Naruto then channels chakra into his legs. He slowly bends down. The Uzumaki then looks up at a clone that is high in a tree staring down at him. Naruto jumps, closing the distance in a second. He yells, Ninpo. Gamma Ashi, ninja art, toad legs. Naruto then swings Kabikirabocho, cleaving the cone in half from the top of the head to the bottom of his balls. He yells, Tate ni Toban, vertical bisection. The idea for this technique is from Naruto watching Gamabunta jump. Naruto channels chakra into his legs, allowing the blonde Uzumaki to be able to jump great heights and distances. It is a B-rank supplementary technique. Shizune then appears in the clearing. She worriedly asks, do you know where Tsunade-sama is? Naruto answers, no, but I can hear a fight not far from here. So let's go. He grabs Shizune as a mist settles over the two. Once the mist dissipates, they are gone. They disappeared in a mist shunshin. The two appear in a mist that quickly dissipates. Naruto and Shizune see Tsunade shaking and shivering with a drop of blood on her. They also see Kabuto Yakushi, not that Naruto knew who he was, and Orochimaru. Kabuto has onyx eyes and ash-gray hair, which he normally keeps in a ponytail. His most consistent feature is his black-rimmed circular glasses, given to him by Nono. He wears a dark purple shirt with a high collar, a white undershirt, and dark purple pants with a white cloth waistband. Orochimaru's laugh is then heard by everyone there, as he says, Kukakuku. Naruto-kun, what a welcome. We've got to stop meeting like this. Naruto then channels chakra into his legs. He slowly bends down. The Uzumaki then looks up at Orochimaru. Naruto jumps towards the snake, closing the distance in a second. He yells, Ninpo. Gamma Ashi, ninja art, toad legs. Naruto appears right in front of Orochimaru, and kicks off of his chest flying towards Kabuto. He then swings Kabikirabocho at Kabuto, aiming for the neck. As he slashes through Kabuto's neck, he yells, Suihei Zanshu, horizontal beheading. Only for the Yakushi to disappear in a puff of smoke, revealing a bisected log. At the same time that was happening, a shadow clone appeared in front of Orochimaru. With a fully formed Rasengan, Naruto smashed the ball of chakra into the stomach of the snake Sannin, making him fly away from Naruto. The real Naruto then yells, Ba-chan. I guess it's time you give me that necklace, huh? Tsunade just smiles, which quickly turns into a frown, as Kabuto backhands Naruto into a boulder. The Naruto embedded in the boulder disappears in a puff of smoke. Kabuto then quickly turns around, as Naruto just finished a string of hand seals. Snake right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, tiger. He yells, Kaden. Gokakyu no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique. A medium-sized fireball shoots at Kabuto. When the fire dies down, Kabuto is nowhere to be found. Naruto quickly jumps into the air, as Kabuto appears from under the ground where he just stood seconds before. The Uzumaki, while in mid-air, goes through hand seals. Tiger right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, rat. Naruto then expels a large quantity of water in the form of a powerful torrent aimed towards the Yakushi. The blonde Chunin then lands, and launches toward the soaked Kabuto. He then attempts to cleave Kabuto in half only for Kabuto to disappear in a puff of smoke, revealing Orochimaru, who blocks with Kusanagi. Naruto ducks under Kusanagi, spins, and then swings Kabikirabocho. As the blonde bisects Orochimaru, snakes emerge from both halves of the snake Sannin's body and pull him back together, seemingly undoing the damage he sustained. Then everyone hears a cry from someone. This someone is Jiraiya, who yells, Kaden. Ryuka no Jutsu, fire release, dragon fire technique. Jiraiya then spits flames from their mouth that, like a dragon's, quickly travel forward in a straight direction. Upon contact with Orochimaru, the affected area is engulfed in flames. Kabuto then rushes at the two vulnerable kunoichi. Seeing this, Naruto jumps towards the Yakushi, closing the distance in seconds. Naruto then swings Kabikirabocho at Kabuto, aiming for the neck. As he slashes through Kabuto's neck, he yells, "Suihei Zanshu," horizontal beheading. Naruto then lands in front of the two kunoichi in a protective stance. He watches as the head of Kabuto slides of his body. Orochimaru curses. He didn't think that Naruto would be able to kill Kabuto. Not in 100 years would he have thought that, but the blonde is unpredictable, after all. He then says, "I didn't think I'd have to use this jutsu so early after the invasion, but it can't be helped." Orochimaru then weaves a string of hand seals. Tiger right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow, dog right pointing arrow, dragon right pointing arrow, clap hands. He yells, "Kachiuse! Edo Tensai!" Summoning. Impure world reincarnation. A single coffin rises up from the ground. The coffin has the Uzumaki swirl on the lid. When the lid falls to the ground, Naruto and Jiraiya gasp in shock. Naruto grows angry. Inside the coffin is Kushina Uzumaki, Naruto's mother. As Kushina opens her eyes, she sees two males. One was Jiraiya. The other was a whiskered blonde, her son. Kushina asks, "Sochi, is that you?" Naruto, with a weak smile, answers, "Ka-chan. It's me, Datbeo." Kushina asks, "Where are we, pervy sage?" Jiraiya answers, "We are in a field outside of Tanzaku quarters, 13 years after Naruto's birth. You know, he just got promoted to Chunin, after fighting the Jinchuriki of the Ichibi no Shukaku. When Suna, Ato, and Kumo invaded Konoha." Kushina then asks, "What village is Ato?" Naruto growls, and answers, "It's a hidden village created by the S-rank missing nin from Konoha, who goes by the name Orochimaru." Before the Uzumaki had time to react, Orochimaru then shoves a kunai, with a sealing tag, into the back of her head. Kushina then launches a golden chain from her back. The chain shoots directly at Naruto, who blocks the chain with Kabikirabocho. Another chain shoots at Naruto, who dodges the weapon. Naruto, who jumped over the chain, lands on Kabikirabocho. He then weaves a string of hand seals. Tiger right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, rabbit right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, dog right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow, tiger right pointing arrow, ox right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, rabbit right pointing arrow, bird. A large volume of water shoots from Naruto's mouth. As it cascades down onto his mother, it resembles a giant waterfall. He yells, "Sweden! Daibakufu no Jutsu, water release, great waterfall technique." Chains then erupt from all around Kushina, they start spinning, forming a dome. She yells, "Kusari Kaden, chain rotation." When Naruto's jutsu ends, the chains then shoot at the two males. Only for Tsunade to appear, kicking a slab of earth into the air, which blocks the chains. Tsunade then punches the slab, which breaks, and shoots towards Kushina. When Kushina sees the blonde, she asks, "Sensei, why are you here?" Tsunade answers, "When you died, I left Konoha with Shizune and Taunton." Naruto then says, "She's now the Godem Hokage, Ka-chan." Kushina smiles a bit. Tsunade then rushes forward, punching through Kushina's head. This exposes the control kunai, which Naruto quickly grabs, and burns it. Kushina smiles. As her soul leaves the body, she says, "I love you, Sochi. Don't forget it, Databane." Naruto replies, "I won't, Ka-chan, Datbeo." Orochimaru growls, but it then punted away by Tsunade to who knows where. Tsunade then says, "Let's go back to Konoha, I have a hat to wear." As they leave the field, Tsunade puts the Shodai's necklace around his neck. This is when Choco, who is carrying Taunton, appears. She asks, "What happened?" Naruto answers, "Cho-chan, Tsunade-sama just became the Godem Hokage." Tsunade chuckles, as Jiraiya grows depressed. For now everything was perfect for Naruto, and he'd try his best to keep it. But right now he just wanted to go home. So, that is exactly what the 6, plus Taunton, do. It was another week before the 7 of them got back to Konoha. When they got to the gates, they saw Kotetsu Higane and Izumo Kamizuki. Kotetsu has long, spiky, black hair and dark eyes. He has a strip of bandage running across the bridge of his nose and a light-colored marking on his chin. He wears the standard attire of a Konoha shinobi complete with a Konoha Hite 8 and a flak jacket. When deployed on missions, he usually carries a pair of bladed weapons strapped to his back. Izumo has brown hair and dark eyes. His hair is combed down and always covers his right eye. He wears his Konoha Hite 8 like a bandana along with the standard Konoha shinobi outfit which goes all the way up to his chin and a flak jacket. Izumo says, "Welcome back Jiraiya-sama, Naruto. I'm guessing your mission is a success then, huh?" Kotetsu asks, "So, who's the girl?" Tsunade answers, "That would be my daughter, Choko. Choko Senju." Kotetsu then says, "Nice to meet you, honorable daughter. I am Kotetsu Higane. Let me be the first to welcome you to Konoha." Choko smiles, and replies, "Thank you Kotetsu-san." Naruto grumbles something about Choko not being the only child of a Hokage, but only the two Sannin heard, and then replies, "I'm about to treat Cho-chan to some ramen. So let's go." Tsunade smiles, but Jiraiya says, "Naruto practically lives on that stuff. I swear that I once saw him eat 10 bowls in under 5 minutes." Shizune says, "Tsunade-sama, I will be going with Cho-chan and Naruto-san." Jiraiya then says, "Tsunaheim, let's meet with sensei. I bet he'll be happy to see you." When they walk away, Kotetsu asks, "I wonder who Choko's Tusan is." Izumo just smacks Kotetsu in the back of the head, and answers, "It's Jiraiya-sama. You dold. Couldn't you tell, like at all?" Kotetsu just simply, "Ohs," in response. Tsunade then goes directly to the hospital healing everyone that she could, which was exactly everyone. In the following week, Tsunade was sworn in as the Godem Hokage. Sitting behind her new desk, Tsunade is looking over an escort mission to Yukigakure no Sato. She'd need a medic, a fighter, a strategist, and a leader for the mission. Choko, her daughter, would be the medic. Naruto Uzumaki, her future son-in-law, as the fighter. She only called him that to make fun of the fact that he liked Choko. Shikamaru Nara as the strategist, while Kakashi would be the leader of this mission, seeing as she knew that he'd been there on a mission before. Tsunade then called for an Anbu to get her those exact people. They all got there an hour later. Seeing as this is a B-rank mission, Kakashi got there in a decent amount of time. Kakashi asks, "What is this mission, Hokage-sama?" Tsunade answers, "You're to escort the actress Yuki Fujikaze. She is going to be making a movie that is set in Yuki no Kuni. Her personal assistant Sandayu Asama has hired you, and this team to protect her during the making of the movie. I'd like for you to watch her most recent movie, as well as meet with Sandayu Asama. That's all for now. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments.